Would disembarked King Brunel ever have imagined that the ship he designed way back in 1839 be the iconic ship it is today? The ship was built by William Patterson for the Great Western Steamship Company in this very yard where you see her today. To his surprise, Prince Albert, who had been invited to launch the ship, on his arrival at the shipyard saw that the ship was already launched. Then the naming ceremony by Clarissa Miles didn't go to plan. The bottle of champagne did not break against the hull, so a second bottle was hurled against the hull by Prince Albert. The SS Great Britain was built as a combined sail and steamship, with a 5-masted schooner rigged and 1-mast square sail, together with 2 steam engines driving 1 propeller. The original propeller was 6-bladed, and during her second trip to New York in a strong gale, 3 blades from the propeller were lost. On her return voyage, 4 blades from the propeller were lost, and the ship had a noticeable roll. Thus the ship was rebuilt with a keel and alteration to her mast. The refit took 1 year, during which time the propeller was changed with a 4-bladed one. Soon after this refit, the Great Western Steamship Company went out of business. The ship was sold, and the new owners carried out yet another rebuild, replacing the 2 steam engines with smaller ones and changing the propeller to a 3-bladed one. This propeller could be raised into the hull, allowing the ship to be all sail when weather permitted. Built for service between the UK and New York, the SS Great Britain was the first ship to be built of iron with a screw propeller, the first iron ship to cross the Atlantic. When launched on the 19th of July 1843, the SS Great Britain was the largest vessel afloat. The morning of the day of sailing out of Bristol arrived. Crowds had gathered around Cumberland Basin to bid farewell to this large ship, but she had been built too big and became stuck in the lock. Within 12 hours the lock was widened and the SS Great Britain sailed out of the River Avon on the night tide. Because of her size, Brunel thought it wise to lay her on the mud outside of the lock until next day. The following day all was well with the ship floating on the rising day tide. As she sailed down the Avon and out into the Bristol Channel, the SS Great Britain first went to the River Thames in London for sea trials. She never returned to Bristol again, that is until 1970, when she arrived back at Bristol aboard a floating pontoon, with thousands greeting her return, as they did years before when she left the city.
Well, that's a huge cow, isn't it?
The maiden voyage for the SS Great Britain was in July 1845, bound from Liverpool to New York with only 45 passengers, despite the ship being designed to carry 360 passengers and 130 officers and crew. This first voyage took 14 days, which disappointed the owners, as this was slower than other ships. The next voyage reduced it by 1 day to 13 days. During the voyage in 1846, the ship ran aground off County Down in Ireland due to navigational error, and later, when floated free, returned to Liverpool for repairs. If you have enjoyed this film so far, please hit the like button below. Plus, To receive notification of my new films, please hit the subscribe button to my Chris Witts channel. One of the earlier notable passengers was Colonel Sir George Everest, a man of such distinction that they even named a mountain after him. During 1852, the SS Great Britain was sold, and following major repairs became an emigrant ship sailing between England and Australia. She carried thousands of emigrants, and during her working life, over 33,000 passengers travelled on this great ship. In 1861, the first English cricket team to tour Australia travelled on the SS Great Britain, taking 64 days to get there. 20 years later, in 1881, the engines were removed and the vessel became a full sailing ship. Finally, in 1884, the SS Great Britain was retired to the Falklands to be used as a floating warehouse and coal hulk. Remarkably, she lasted in this state until scuttled in 1937 and allowed to rot on the foreshore. She remained like this until 1969, when money was raised to return her to Bristol and restore her to what you see today. The engine you see today on the SS Great Britain is a full-scale replica of the original of 1845. It is of lightweight construction, weighing 90 tons, so as not to overload this fragile ship. Compare this to the weight of the original at 390 tons. The two original engines would have been very heavy and noisy with lots of live steam. It is said that no plans exist of the original engines. What is known is that the engines were designed by Thomas Guppy in collaboration with Brunel and based on the first V engine which had been invented by Mark Brunel, Isambard's father. Whilst the ship was aground off Ireland in 1846, the engines were removed to assist the ship in refloating and possibly still lie at the bottom of the sea in Dundrum Bay.